I went up there and I felt good and I prayed well and I felt strong and assured. And I went up there and I stammered on every single word for half an hour. Every single word. Um, and I'd spoken publicly in the past, all of these things, and it never gone as bad as that. Every single word, and it was quite traumatizing because I remember the faces of everybody, even now, and I can still see those faces of the people who looked perplexed at what was happening, those people who leant in to try to understand me, those people who smiled in a way to try to help me. And I see every single face and just how weak, how vulnerable, how helpless I felt. And then all of the other feelings, which I'm sure we'll speak about soon as we move on. But yeah, I didn't preach for a year and a half after that. And so that was my first ever sermon. I think the sermon itself was actually pretty good, but just nobody could really understand it. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks for starting off even with such vulnerability in that. And as sure, let's just jump straight in there. Like the reason why I was so kind of compelled and I pursued you so much to get you on the show is because I saw this preaching clip of yours speaking about how that you, as a preacher of God's word, being convinced that God has given you all that you need, also are living with like a speech impediment or a stammer. And I just loved your honesty about that. And I'm sure that God has like upheld and taught and helped you so much throughout that. Would you like to maybe explain like maybe your diagnosis and then also like how that has impacted you as a preacher?
yes, absolutely. So speech impediments can be caused in ways. Often, so sometimes they can be caused by a brain injury, and that's usually quite self-explanatory. The medical people understand that. But then the other way, which is the way that most people have one, if they do have one, is just that they had one when they were young, and then as they grew up, due to different circumstances, it became worse. And the medical specialists haven't got any idea what actually can cause someone to have a speech impediment. The only origins they have found which link everyone is traumatizing experiences of various kinds. And I definitely see that in my own life. So I didn't speak properly until I was about 3. I had 2 older sisters who spoke for me. So I think part of that was because I didn't have to. And so I didn't speak properly until I was 3, went to speech therapy at 3, learned how to speak. I was fine. But there was a slight speech impediment there. I would stammer on certain words, but it wasn't too bad. And then I just recognized moments in my life where certain things happened, even things where we had to move homes, and I noticed that my speech impediment became worse. I noticed that when I moved my school when I was about 13, and my speech impediment became worse, and things like that. But then there's other, probably more traumatic experiences, perhaps, which I went through, and I just saw my speech impediment increase after those. And so I definitely relate to that theory. So you would think, therefore, that there's some way to heal out of that, but they haven't been able to find any way. There are different exercises which you can do, which help some people but don't help others. And I've been through all of that. My speech impediment is far better now than it was. As I said, when I preached for the first time, it was really bad, really, really bad. When now I preach every single week. So that would kind of be my diagnosis as per se.